The stars had always seemed peaceful to Sam. He stood on the bridge of the Earth defense vessel Ironclad, watching the distant lights of the colony world New Montana through the viewing screen. It was a quiet night in the year 2347, and humanity had spread across 17 star systems without ever meeting another intelligent species. Sam had begun to think they were alone in the universe. He was wrong. The communication officer, a young man named Danny, turned from his station with a pale face. His hands were shaking as he spoke. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission. It is not in any human language, but the computer is translating it now." Sam walked closer to the main screen. He had served in the military for 23 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and natural disasters, but nothing had prepared him for what appeared on that screen. The alien was tall, nearly 8 feet, with a body that seemed to be made of living crystal. Light moved through its form like blood through veins. Its face had no mouth, but the voice came clearly through the speakers, cold and ancient. It spoke with the confidence of a species that had never known defeat. "I am ambassador of the collective. I speak on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, which has governed these stars for 50,000 years. Your species has been observed and classified. You are Category 9, a species from a high-gravity, high-radiation world with a toxic atmosphere. The Coalition has determined that your kind poses an unacceptable threat to galactic stability. You have 7 solar days to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, your species will be eliminated." Sam felt his crew go still around him. Lieutenant Kate, the chief science officer, gripped the edge of her console so hard her knuckles turned white. Danny looked like he might be sick. Only Sam remained outwardly calm, though his heart was pounding in his chest. He asked the question that needed to be asked. "What happens if we surrender?" His crystalline form pulsed with light. "Your population will be relocated to designated reservation worlds. You will be sterilized to prevent further breeding. You will be monitored until natural extinction occurs. This is considered the merciful option. Resistance will result in immediate and total destruction. Your fleet numbers fewer than 800 vessels. The Coalition fleet numbers 312,000. The mathematics are clear." Kate pulled up data on her console and ran the calculations. Her voice was barely a whisper when she spoke. "He is telling the truth, Commander. Their fleet is massive. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Our weapons would barely scratch their shields. We cannot win this fight." Sam looked at the alien ambassador. The creature seemed utterly certain of victory. It had probably delivered this same message to dozens of species over the centuries. Surrender or die. Most had probably surrendered. Most had probably accepted their fate and walked quietly into extinction. Sam was not most people. He had grown up on a small farm in Kentucky, where the summers were brutal and the winters were worse. He had learned to work with his hands, to fix what was broken, to keep going when everything seemed hopeless. His father had taught him that a man does not give up just because the odds are bad. His mother had taught him that there is always another way if you are willing to look for it. He ended the transmission without another word. His image flickered and disappeared, leaving only the stars on the screen. "Commander," Danny said, his voice shaking, "what do we do?" Sam turned to face his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. They had just learned that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that their new neighbors wanted them dead. They had just learned that everything they had built, every colony, every station, every dream of a future among the stars, could be wiped out in 7 days. "That is not happening," Sam said. His voice was quiet but steady. The words filled the bridge like a promise. Kate stared at him. "Commander, you heard the numbers. We cannot fight them. Their technology alone would destroy us. We do not have the weapons, the ships, or the time." Sam nodded. "You are right. We cannot fight them with what we have, so we need to find something else." He looked around the bridge at each of his crew members in turn. "I need you to contact Earth Command. Tell them what happened here. Tell them I am requesting an emergency meeting with every scientist, engineer, and military leader we have. And tell them one more thing." "What is that, sir?" Danny asked. "Tell them Sam does not surrender." The next 3 days were chaos. Earth's unified government split into factions almost immediately. Some leaders argued for surrender, saying that survival under alien rule was better than extinction. Others demanded a glorious last stand, preferring death to submission. The debates grew heated, then violent. No one could agree on anything. But Sam was not waiting for politicians to make up their minds. He had made a few calls of his own, reaching out to people he had met during his long career. Scientists who thought differently, engineers who could build the impossible, soldiers who had stared death in the face and laughed. One name kept coming up in his research: Dr. Ben Carver, a physicist who had been quietly working at a research station near Jupiter for the past 15 years. The scientific community considered him a crackpot, a madman chasing theories that violated everything they knew about physics. His funding had been cut 3 times. He had been laughed out of conferences, but he had never stopped working. Sam read through Ben's papers, most of which he barely understood, but he understood enough. Ben Carver believed that the laws of physics were not as fixed as everyone thought. He believed they could be changed. It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly what Sam needed. He sent a message to the Jupiter station with 3 simple words: "I believe you." Ben Carver responded within the hour: "When do we start?" Sam looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, a fleet of 300,000 alien ships was preparing to wipe humanity from existence. Somewhere out there, an ancient coalition had decided that humans were too dangerous to live. They had given humanity 7 days to surrender. They had made a terrible mistake. Ben Carver was not what Sam expected. The physicist was a thin man in his 50s with messy gray hair and eyes that seemed to look through things rather than at them. He wore a lab coat covered in coffee stains and spoke so fast that Sam had to ask him to repeat himself 3 times in the first 5 minutes. But when Ben started explaining his theory, Sam understood why the man had never given up. "The universe operates on rules," Ben said, packing back and forth across the cramped meeting room on the ironclad. "Gravity, electromagnetism, the speed of light. We call them constants because we assume they never change. But I have spent 15 years studying the quantum foam, the fabric underneath reality itself, and I found something incredible. These constants are not truly constant. They are locally enforced parameters, maintained by the structure of spacetime. And with the right application of energy, we can change them." Kate leaned forward in her chair. She had joined the meeting along with Chief Engineer Cole and Tactical Officer Price. All of them looked exhausted after 3 days of almost no sleep. "You are saying we can rewrite the laws of physics?" Ben nodded eagerly. "In a localized area, yes. Imagine a bubble where gravity works differently, where light moves faster, where the equations that govern everything simply stop applying. Any technology designed for normal physics would fail inside that bubble. Shields would collapse, weapons would misfire, engines would tear themselves apart." Cole, a gruff man with hands and a permanent frown, let out a short laugh. "You want to hack the universe?" "Essentially, yes," Ben replied without a hint of irony. Sam studied the physicist carefully. He had learned to read people over his years of service. Some people talked big but crumbled under pressure. Others seemed weak but had cores of steel. Ben Carver was the second type. The man truly believed in his work, and more importantly, he had the numbers to back it up. "What do you need to make this happen?" Sam asked. Ben's excitement faded slightly. "That is the problem. The device I have designed, which I call the constant breaker, requires an enormous amount of energy, more than humanity can currently generate. Even if we linked every reactor in the fleet, we would only have a fraction of what we need." The room fell silent. Kate closed her eyes. They had come so close to hope, only to hit another wall. But Sam was not ready to give up. He turned to Price, who had been quietly studying intelligence reports on her tablet throughout the meeting. "What do we know about how the Coalition powers their ships?" Looked up. Her dark eyes were sharp despite her exhaustion. "They use zero-point energy cores. The technology draws power directly from the quantum vacuum. A single core produces more energy than a star." She paused, understanding dawning on her face. "Commander, you cannot be serious." Sam smiled for the first time in days. "Tell me where the nearest Coalition ship is." The plan was insane, but insane was all they had. Intelligence reports indicated that a small Coalition patrol group had entered human space to conduct reconnaissance. One of their scout vessels had separated from the main group to investigate an asteroid field near the colony of Haven's Rest. It was a light cruiser, carrying only a skeleton crew of about 50 soldiers. 50 aliens against a boarding party of human marines. The numbers sounded almost fair. Cole spent 16 hours modifying the combat suits the Marines would wear. He reinforced the armor, boosted the power systems, and added close-quarters weapons designed for fighting in tight corridors. He worked without rest, fueled by coffee and pure stubbornness. Kate analyzed every scrap of data they had on biology. The aliens had evolved on a low-gravity world with a gentle climate. They were physically fragile compared to humans. Their bones were hollow, their muscles weak. They had never needed strength because their technology had always protected them. "They have never faced in close combat," Kate reported. "They do not know what we are capable of." Price developed the tactical approach. The Marines would breach the hull at 3 points simultaneously, overwhelming the defenders before they could organize a response. Speed and violence would be their greatest weapons. They would not know what hit them. Sam announced that he would lead the boarding party himself. Objected immediately. "Commander, you are too valuable to risk. If you die, we lose everything." Sam shook his head. "This mission needs someone crazy enough to walk into impossible odds and stubborn enough to walk back out. That is me. Besides, I am not asking my people to do anything I would not do myself." The boarding party consisted of 30 Marines, each one a volunteer who understood they might not come back. They gathered in the shuttle bay of the ironclad, checking their weapons and saying quiet goodbyes to friends. Sam walked among them, clasping hands and meeting eyes. He did not give a speech. He did not need to. They all knew what was at stake. The shuttle launched at 300 hours, running silent through the darkness of space. The Coalition scout ship hung in the asteroid field like a jewel among rocks, its crystalline hull glowing with inner light. It was beautiful in a cold, alien way. Sam felt no appreciation for its beauty. He only saw a target. The breach was violent and fast. Explosive charges blew through the hull at 3 points, and the Marines poured in like water through a broken dam. The defenders were caught completely off guard. They had expected humans to surrender or flee. They had not expected humans to attack. Sam led his team through corridors that seemed to be made of living glass. The aliens they encountered fell quickly, their fragile bodies unable to withstand the impact of human weapons. Some tried to fight, others tried to run. None succeeded. An officer blocked Sam's path to the engine room, holding a weapon that hummed with energy. "Surrender, human," the alien commanded. "You cannot win." Sam laughed. The sound echoed through the corridor, harsh and cold. "You have no idea what you are dealing with," he said. He moved before the alien could fire. His armored fist connected with his chest, and the creature crumpled like paper. Sam stepped over the body and continued toward his objective. The zero-point energy core was exactly where the intelligence reports said it would be. Sam disconnected it himself, lifting the massive device onto his shoulders. It was heavy, but he had grown up carrying equipment across Kentucky farmland. He had carried wounded soldiers through battlefields. He had carried the weight of command for 20 years. He could carry this. The extraction was bloody. 12 Marines did not make it back to the shuttle. Sam carried their names in his heart as the ironclad jumped away, leaving the crippled Coalition ship behind. He had what he needed. Now it was time to break the universe. The zero-point energy core sat in the center of the ironclad's cargo bay like a captured god. It pulsed with light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, and the air around it hummed with power that made Sam's teeth ache. Ben Carver circled it slowly, his eyes wide with wonder. "This is magnificent," the physicist whispered. "Do you understand what this represents? This single device produces more energy than humanity has generated in its entire history. The Coalition has been hoarding technology like this for 50,000 years, while the rest of the galaxy struggled in darkness." Sam did not care about the philosophical implications. He cared about results. "Can you make it work with your device?" Ben nodded, already pulling out tools and running calculations on his tablet. "It will require some modifications, but yes. With this much power, the constant breaker will work exactly as I designed." He looked up at Sam with something like joy in his tired eyes. "Commander, we are going to change everything." The work began immediately. Cole and his engineering team tore apart sections of the ironclad to make room for the new equipment. Ben Carver directed them with frantic energy, pointing and shouting, and occasionally climbing into the machinery himself when something was not being done correctly. Kate monitored the energy readings, making sure the zero-point core remained stable. Price handled the military side of things. Coalition forces would eventually notice that one of their ships had been attacked. They would come looking for answers. She coordinated with the rest of the human fleet, positioning ships to delay any Coalition scouts that got too close. The crew worked in shifts, sleeping for 4 hours and then returning to their stations. They ate protein bars and drank coffee until their hands shook. They pushed themselves beyond exhaustion because they understood that failure meant extinction. Sam worked alongside them. He carried equipment, ran cables, and helped with whatever needed doing. Some commanders stayed in their offices and gave orders from a distance. Sam had never been that type. His people needed to see him sweating and struggling right beside them. On the 4th day, Kate discovered a problem. "The field emitters are not calibrated correctly," she reported during a brief meeting in the cargo bay. "The constant breaker will create the altered physics zone, but it will be unstable. The bubble could collapse after just a few seconds, or it could expand uncontrollably and destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers, including us." Ben Carver ran his hands through his already messy hair. "I know. I have been trying to solve this for 3 days. The math works in theory, but in practice, the variables are too chaotic. We need some way to stabilize the field." Cole spoke up from where he was working on a power conduit. "What about using the ship itself as an anchor? If we route the field through the ironclad's hull, the metal structure might provide enough stability to keep the bubble from collapsing." Ben stared at him for a long moment. "That is either brilliant or insane." Shrugged, "Those are usually the same thing." They tried it. The modifications took another 18 hours, and at one point a power surge nearly killed 3 engineers. But when Ben ran the final calculations, his face lit up with triumph. "It works. The field will be stable for at least 15 minutes, which should be more than enough time." He looked around at the exhausted crew. "We did it. We actually did it." But there was no time for celebration. A message came through from Earth Command. The Coalition fleet had begun moving. 300,000 ships were heading toward human space, and they would arrive in less than 2 days. Ambassador sent one final transmission. "Your 7 days are nearly complete. I am told that you attacked one of our patrol vessels and stole technology. This act of aggression has only confirmed what we already knew. Your species is too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Surrender now, and some of your people may yet be spared." Sam watched the alien's crystalline face looked calm, confident, utterly certain of victory. He had probably never imagined that humans would fight back. He had probably never imagined that anyone would be foolish enough to challenge the coalition. Sam replied with 2 words, "Come and see." He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. They were exhausted, scared, and running on nothing but willpower. But they were also determined. They had worked too hard and sacrificed too much to give up now. "We have one chance," Sam said. "One shot at this. When that fleet arrives, we hit them with everything we have. The constant breaker will disable their technology, and then our ships will finish the job. It will be the most dangerous thing any of us has ever done." He paused, looking at each of them in turn. "I will not lie to you. Some of us will not survive this. Maybe none of us will. But if we do nothing, humanity dies anyway. Our colonies will be destroyed. Our children will be sterilized and watched until they fade away. Everything we have ever built, every dream we have ever had, will be erased like we never existed." His voice hardened. "I refuse to let that happen. I refuse to go quietly into the darkness. And I know you feel the same way because you are here. You volunteered for this. You worked without sleep for 6 days to build something impossible. You are the best humanity has to offer, and I am honored to serve beside you." He turned to face where the stars waited in silence. "The coalition thinks we are just another species to be conquered. They think we will break because the odds are against us. They do not understand what it means to be human. They do not understand that we have been fighting impossible odds since we first crawled out of the mud on our deadly little world." Cole spoke up from his station. His voice was rough with exhaustion but steady. "We are, Commander. We do not break." Kate nodded. "We adapt, we survive, we win." Price smiled grimly. "And we make our enemies regret ever threatening us." Ben Carver laughed, a slightly unhinged sound that echoed through the cargo bay. "We are about to rewrite the laws of physics. I have been waiting my entire life for this." Sam felt something warm spread through his chest. Pride, hope, love for these strange, stubborn, brilliant people who had chosen to stand beside him. "Battle stations," he ordered. "The coalition fleet will be here in 36 hours. Let us show them what can do." The coalition fleet arrived like a tide of death. 300,000 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space, their crystalline hulls catching the light of distant stars. They spread across the void in perfect formation, a wall of destruction that seemed to stretch forever. Sam watched them appear on the tactical display. Each dot represented a ship more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. Each ship carried weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand nuclear explosions. Together, they represented the combined might of a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. Against them stood 783 human vessels. They were smaller, weaker, and hopelessly outnumbered. By any reasonable calculation, they should have already surrendered. But humans had never been reasonable. Ambassador's voice came through the communication system one final time. "This is your last opportunity. Surrender now and accept the mercy of the coalition. Resist, and you will be destroyed completely. There will be no survivors. There will be no memory of your kind." Sam stood at the center of the ironclad's bridge, surrounded by his crew. Kate monitored the constant breakers systems from her station. Cole had his hand on the power controls, ready to activate the device at Sam's command. Price coordinated with the rest of the fleet, positioning ships for the attack. Ben Carver stood near the main display, watching his life's work prepare to change history. Sam took a deep breath. He thought about the 12 Marines who had died stealing the zero-point core. He thought about the colonists on New Montana and Haven's Rest, and all the other human worlds that would burn if they failed. He thought about his parents, long dead now, who had taught him to never give up. Then he smiled. "Let me tell you something about humans," he said, his voice calm and steady. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages and plagues and predators with teeth longer than my arm. We built civilizations on fault lines and beside volcanoes because we refused to let our planet push us around. We are stubborn, creative, and absolutely unwilling to accept that anything is impossible. He leaned forward slightly. You gave us 7 days to surrender. Instead, we built something that breaks the laws of physics. You brought 300,000 ships to destroy us. Instead, you brought us targets. He turned to Cole. Activate the constant breaker. Press the control. The effect was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. A sphere of altered reality expanded from the ironclad at nearly the speed of light, encompassing a region of space 10,000 kilometers across. Inside that sphere, the fundamental constants of the universe shifted. The speed of light increased by a factor of 3. Gravitational attraction reversed its direction. Electromagnetic forces began to fluctuate wildly. The coalition fleet, caught in the center of the effect, began to fall apart. Their shields were designed to operate within normal physical parameters. When those parameters changed, the shields failed instantly. Energy barriers that could have withstood the heat of a star simply vanished. Their weapons systems, calibrated for a universe with different rules, either misfired or did nothing at all. Beam weapons bent in impossible directions. Missiles lost their guidance and spiraled off into the void. Worst of all were the engines. Coalition ships used gravity manipulation for propulsion. When gravity started working backward, those engines tore themselves apart. Vessels that had been moving forward suddenly lurched in random directions. Ships collided with each other. Hulls cracked and shattered. Chaos spread through the coalition formation like fire through dry grass. The human fleet surged forward. Their ships had been designed differently. Earth vessels used crude but robust chemical rockets and fusion drives. Their systems were hardened against the extreme conditions of space, built to survive the radiation and temperature swings of their home solar system. They adapted to the altered physics faster than the coalition ships could compensate. Sam watched the tactical display as human ships tore into the confused enemy formation. Missiles found their targets now that coalition shields had failed. Rounds punched through crystalline hulls that had never needed to be truly armored. Smaller human craft darted between the larger coalition vessels, exploiting every gap in their defenses. It was not a battle, it was a massacre. Ambassador's flagship, a massive crystalline structure nearly 3 kilometers long, drifted helplessly in the center of the carnage. Its engines had died. Its weapons were offline. Its crew scrambled desperately to restore systems that simply could not function in the altered space. Himself appeared on his crystalline form flickering with panic. This is impossible. This cannot be happening. You cannot change the laws of physics. It is forbidden. It is wrong. Sam laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, but it was not kind either. It was the laugh of a man who had been told he would die and had chosen to live instead. Nothing is forbidden, he said. Nothing is impossible. You ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years because you had better technology than everyone else. You never had to adapt, to struggle, to fight for survival. You forgot what it means to face something truly dangerous. He gestured at the destruction outside the. We are, Ambassador. We are the most dangerous thing you have ever encountered, and you made the mistake of threatening our children. Stared at him with what might have been horror, or perhaps just incomprehension. His entire worldview was collapsing around him, as surely as his fleet was collapsing in space. I surrender, he said finally. The word seemed to cause him physical pain. The collective surrenders, please, stop this. Sam nodded slowly. He felt no triumph, only exhaustion and a profound relief. The coalition fleet was broken. The immediate threat had passed. Humanity would survive. All ships stand down, he ordered. Accept surrenders and provide aid to damaged vessels. The fight is over. Around him, his crew began to cheer. Kate was crying. Cole was laughing. Price simply sat back in her chair and let out a long breath she had been holding for what felt like years. Ben Carver stared at them with an expression of pure wonder. "We broke physics," he whispered. "We actually broke physics." Sam put a hand on the physicist's shoulder. "No," he said quietly. "We just reminded the universe who we are." The galaxy had not changed overnight, but the first cracks in the old order were already spreading. Word of the battle traveled faster than any ship could fly, carried by communication networks that spanned thousands of worlds. A species had defeated the coalition fleet. A single human ship had broken the laws of physics. Nothing would ever be the same. Sam did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. He sat in his quarters on the ironclad, staring at a list of names on his tablet. The 12 Marines who had died stealing the 0-point core. The 47 crew members lost during the battle. Every name represented a person with a family, with dreams, with a life that had been cut short so that others could live. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Kate entered, looking nearly as exhausted as he felt. "The coalition delegates are ready to begin negotiations," she said. "They are asking for you specifically." Sam nodded and set aside the tablet. He would return to those names later. He would make sure they were never forgotten. The negotiations took place on a neutral station near the border of human space. Delegates from 17 coalition species gathered in a chamber designed for beings of all shapes and sizes. Some were crystalline like the others were gaseous, or stranger still. They watched Sam with expressions ranging from fear to curiosity to grudging respect. Ambassador was there as well, though he now wore the dull gray colors of a prisoner awaiting trial. His crystalline form had lost its glow, and he seemed somehow smaller than before. Sam spoke plainly and directly. He had never been good at political games. "Humanity does not want war," he began. "We did not seek this conflict. We simply wanted to live in peace, to raise our families, to explore the stars. Your coalition decided that was unacceptable. You decided we were too dangerous to exist. You gave us 7 days to choose between extinction and slow death." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We chose a third option, we fought back, and we won." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Several of them shifted uncomfortably. Sam continued, "I am not here to gloat or to demand revenge. I am here to offer something the coalition has never given to a younger species: respect, partnership, a chance to work together instead of against each other." One of the delegates, a gaseous being that spoke through a translation device, pulsed with agitation. "You broke the fundamental constants of reality. You have made yourselves more dangerous than ever. Why should we trust you?" Sam met the being's sensor array directly. "Because we do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to conquer or control. We just want to live. And we are willing to share what we have learned." The negotiations continued for 3 weeks. They were difficult and often frustrating. Thousands of years of coalition policy had to be reconsidered. Species that had been taught to fear had to learn to see them as potential allies. Pride had to give way to pragmatism. In the end, a new agreement emerged. Humanity would join the galactic community as an equal partner, not a subject. The coalition's policy of sterilizing and exterminating dangerous species would be abolished. The technology behind the constant breaker would be studied under joint supervision, with safeguards to prevent its misuse. It was not perfect. Nothing involving so many different species and cultures could be perfect, but it was a beginning. Dr. Ben Carver became the most famous physicist in the galaxy. He established a research institute on Earth, dedicated to exploring the implications of his discovery. The constant breaker had only scratched the surface. The universe was far more malleable than anyone had imagined, and the possibilities were endless. Ben told a reporter that he had spent 15 years being called a crackpot and a madman. Now everyone wanted to fund his research. He found the irony amusing but also sad. So many discoveries had probably been lost because the scientists who made them were not taken seriously. He hoped his success would encourage others to keep working on ideas that seemed impossible. Kate led diplomatic missions to species that had been oppressed by the Coalition for centuries. Not all of them welcomed humans. Some were suspicious, others hostile, but many were curious about the who had challenged the established order and won. Kate approached each new contact with patience and openness, building relationships one conversation at a time. Price took command of the Ironclad after Sam stepped down from active duty. She continued the work of protecting human colonies and exploring unknown regions of space. The galaxy was larger and stranger than humanity had ever imagined, and there was so much left to discover. Cole retired to a small station near Jupiter, where he opened a repair shop for passing ships. He said he had done enough fighting for one lifetime. Now he just wanted to fix things. But he kept a communicator tuned to military frequencies, and everyone knew that if humanity ever needed him again, he would answer the call. Sam returned to Earth. He bought a small farm in Kentucky, not far from where he had grown up. He planted vegetables and raised chickens and tried to remember what peace felt like. It was harder than he expected. Some nights he woke up sweating, still hearing the screams of dying Marines in his dreams. But the nightmares faded with time. He learned to appreciate simple things again: the taste of fresh tomatoes from his garden, the sound of rain on the roof, the laughter of neighborhood children playing in the fields. One day he received a visitor. Ambassador had been released from custody after his trial, stripped of his rank but allowed to live. He had traveled to Earth specifically to see Sam. They sat on the porch of Sam's farmhouse, watching the sun set over the Kentucky hills. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, broke the silence. "I have studied your history since my release. I wanted to understand how your species could do what you did, how you could face certain death and choose to fight anyway." Sam took a sip of lemonade. "Did you find your answer?" Its crystalline form flickered with complex patterns. "I found many answers. Your planet nearly killed you countless times, but you survived. Your own kind fought terrible wars against each other, but you rebuilt. Every obstacle made you stronger. Every disaster taught you something new." He turned to look at Sam directly. "The Coalition ruled for 50,000 years because we were the strongest, but we stopped growing. We stopped adapting. We became rigid and afraid of change. Your species has only been in space for 300 years, and you have already surpassed us in ways we cannot comprehend." Sam considered this for a moment. "We are not better than you," he said finally. "We are just different. We come from a world that never stopped testing us. That made us stubborn and creative and maybe a little bit crazy. But it also made us value life, because we know how easily it can be taken away." Was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was soft. "I think I finally understand why you laughed when we demanded your surrender. You were not being arrogant or foolish. You simply could not imagine giving up. It is not in your nature." Sam smiled and looked out at the darkening sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. "No," he agreed, "it never was. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had changed it. But some things would always remain the same. Humans would always face challenges with stubborn determination. They would always find ways to survive against impossible odds. They would always refuse to accept that anything was truly impossible. It was simply who they were.